Brandon here. And yeah, if you're a user or big fan of Google Forms, I think you're really going to enjoy this update. Google Forms has always kind of been hindered by a couple of things. One has been that the sharing protocols in Google Drive just always felt so different than every other file in Google Drive. The pop-up windows were different, the settings were different, and it was always something that you kind of had to chase down just to make sure you really had right. I think second is Google Forms has always had kind of a two-layered approach, right? So you could share it with other people who could get in and edit the file. And then you also shared it with people who were the intended responders, right? And you could do that in a restricted way, or anyone with the link could fill out. There were kind of only two options there. So now with this latest update to Google Forms and sharing, that's all changed. And I think it clarifies and makes it much easier to be able to figure out who you're sharing it with and how. And I also think that it just makes managing the overall form and visibility a lot better. So I'm going to walk you through the setup, and it may or may not hit your system yet, but it should be shortly. So here I am. I've got a demo form set up, and the way I think about the new setup is it's kind of a two-stage approach, right? You decide that once you've kind of finished your form and it's ready, you decide to publish it. And then you decide who you're actually going to share it with. And I'll show you why I say to go in that sequence first. So if I go up, there's a really big clear now publish button right up here. And that brings up the ability to decide if I'm going to publish it and make it available now. So the default is to restrict it to specific people. I'm going to leave that because I'm actually going to share this privately with only a couple of accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and click publish. And you can see that the icon's now changed, and it says published up there with a little bit of the kind of the sliders to be able to format that. So when you click on that now, it shows that it's accepting responses. Obviously, you could turn that off. If you turn it off, it's now really easy to update that message. The default is this form is no longer accepting responses. I could say this form is now closed, right? And I could save that, and if somebody had the link and went there, that's actually what would show. So I'm going to turn it back to accepting responses. And I'm going to show you the share button now. So in the share button, it comes up just like other Google Files does, right? You can decide, it says who the owner is and who has default access. And then underneath there's the general access. So there's the editor view, which is anybody who can come in and actually change your questions, update the file itself or the form. And then there's also the responder view. So by default, I'm the owner, and it's now both restricted, both in the editor and the responder view. So I'm going to go ahead and share this, and I'm going to share it with my test account. And my test account, I want to make an editor. And cool thing is too, very quickly, you can also do an update. I'll leave this up January 8th, 2025. I can decide whether to notify that person or not notify that person. And then I can actually type in a message, right? So I'm going to decide to notify, and I'm going to hit send. Since that's in the test domain, it gives me a heads up. Okay. So if I come back in here now, very clearly says it's an editor, says that the access expires on this date. So now I'm going to go to, I'll use my other account. And in this case, I'm going to make this one a responder. So in the response, I'm going to notify people, and please fill out this form and click send. In that case, I did not make an expiration date, but now you'll see that the form is restricted, the editor view is restricted, and so it's only shared with those two accounts. I've got one account that can fill it out as a responder. Now, again, that's an outside Gmail account, so obviously with the different settings, like whether there's file uploads or whether it is required for email and sign in. That can affect whether an outsider can actually access your form in a restricted mode. I would always say that Google's default restricted modes typically are predicated upon somebody else using a Google account, and so certainly in the case of forms, that's the deal when you're uploading attachments or documents or something like that. And then here we've also got the editor with the expiration date. So in this case, it's restricted, but different than previous with Google Forms, we now have it privately shared with individuals. Obviously, if you were sharing it with people that didn't yet have Google accounts, you'd probably still have to set that to anyone with the link can fill out. And yeah, that's how that works. So yeah. Happy form creation and exploring with the new settings. All right, later.